Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Pro Landscaper TV. Thank you all very much for joining us today, whether it's through the Zoom, Instagram Live or Facebook Live. We're here every Tuesday at 10 p.m. for around 40 minutes. Pro Landscaper website has all the latest information on the up-and-coming programmes and an easy link to, if you've missed any, on the catch-up. We've got some excellent programmes planned for the next couple of weeks. Next week, we're looking at mental health and how that's affecting the landscaping sector, signs to look out for, how you can help, and where you could seek advice. Following that, the following week, we have Women in Horticulture, looking at some of the females making real gains for promoting women in horticulture and fulfilling their own careers. Again, all that detail is on the Pro Landscaper website. But today, I'm delighted to be joined by Nick Coslett, who I have to say is looking really healthy and very fit and slim. Welcome, Nick. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Nick is really well known in the industry, a nurseryman who retired from Palmstead a couple of years ago now, maybe.
Yes.
Time's just disappeared, hasn't it?
It does.
But has previously worked at Cobham's, been a parks manager and worked in landscaping businesses. I also say, Nick, it's been a fabulous help to Pro Landscaper when we first launched and when we first went down to Nick, he helped us. And also with Futurescape and supports us very good. So thank you again, Nick. My chance to say thank you to you for that. Nick also writes, as I say, is very well known. He writes an excellent monthly column in Pro Landscaper. There's no denying Nick's passion for the sector, his strong beliefs, and also I think his total commitment to making the sector better long term for everyone that's involved in it. I guess my only worry, Nick, is we've only got 40 minutes to try and cram as much in as we possibly can. Any questions that will come up, we will try and make sure we either get to them or we'll come back to you afterwards on that. But let's start then, Nick. So a couple of years, you're looking fit and healthy. How's retirement treating you?
Well, I would very well, thank you. And I'm actually very fortunate that I'm not in work and haven't been furloughed or suffered all those difficult things that the people that are and the worries that people in employment. I'm very fortunate. I've got a regular pension coming in, and so life is pretty good. I know that's I think mostly because my wife worked very hard and she had quite a good pension.
Yeah.
So and really the lockdown and the virus has really meant that we've been stuck at home, getting deliveries in here, and just walking around our village and getting a bit of exercise. I got an allotment last year, so that helped, and I reworked the garden front and back. So yes, I think I've been a bit more active, and that's what's helped.
Yeah, well, certainly looking good on it. Let's move on to one of the topics I'd like to discuss in terms of the Minister of Horticulture. Just your views on that, whether it's a good thing, and even maybe just explore, is it a good thing because the industry itself's not fighting? Is it a good thing because MPs don't understand horticulture? What's your feelings about that?
Well, I think to a lot of them, it's just gardening, and and we fall into that bloody trap, if you pardon my expression. The trade bodies, HTA and Barley, have been sponsoring the all-party parliamentary horticulture and gardening group. It was just the gardening group at the beginning, and then it became the horticulture and gardening group. And by that way, they have been getting some slightly better access to MPs. But it's it hasn't, it must be 10 years or more. It hasn't progressed as far as I would have liked it to. I think government in particular, we seem to sort of fall, horticulture UK, which is talking about landscaping and things, falls between DEFRA and sometimes the communities, the local government ministry. But UK horticulture, so to speak, contributes about 24 billion a year to the UK economy. Now that's equal to the amount that foreign tourists brought into the UK in 2017. And UK car exports are about 33 billion to the economy. Our economy is basically mostly service-based rather than manufacturing. And so we don't get good representation. That's probably because we are lots of little compartments within Horticulture UK. There's landscaping, there's growers, and all those things, and the various representative bodies. They're slowly coagulating together at things like the ornamental round table that the RHS sort of chairs. But it's slow progress, and they're not recognised, not just for the size of the sector, but the benefits that it brings to everyone in the country. You know, we've seen in this lockdown and the virus that people have benefited access to green space. It helps their mental health, their physical well-being, and there's been some recognition by one or two ministers about that. But the people that create it, or design it, create it, and then manage it and look after it, they're not recognised. They just take an example. Now, Lewis Norman's great idea of getting a Minister for Horticulture, I fully support that. And if anyone hasn't signed up, go to change.org and sign up for Minister for Horticulture. You can search for it and then you can find it. But in this last lockdown, garden centres have been allowed to open. But the little retail nurseries, you know, specialist little nurseries, have not. And there's a petition for those that has achieved about 3,000 signatures. And Lewis's petition so far has got about 1,100, 1,200 signatures. So it needs more.
So Nick, just on that then. So do you think we'd be in a different situation if we had a Minister for Horticulture on that situation? Do you think that's where it would work? Yes,
I think there would be greater awareness. I remember, you know, back in my barley days, you know, each time they contacted DEFRA, they'd have to explain what the sector was. You know, going back to sort of square one and building it up. I think that's a bit less so now, but you know, we're swept. We're not seen as significant. No, we're not. You know, not as big as the financial services sector or anything like that. But you know, we impact on the lives of people in this country almost every day. They go past green space, parks, verges, housing areas. They may have their gardens created or looked after by people. That skill base, you know, is benefiting people and actually will help us give us the technical know-how to cope with some of the climate change issues, which is much bigger than this bloody virus.
Yeah, very much so. And we'll touch on that. I'm just going to come back on something you said about maybe the industry has got too many small parts. Do you think a Minister of Horticulture would say you need to get your own house in order before you could get a minister that are represented? Do you think as an industry we need to get our own house in order in terms of this fragmented approach? I know where there are areas where people are coming together, but or do you think that's not achievable?
I think it would be a pipe dream of mine, but I think there are too many little ivory towers. But they are talking more and more to each other. They are realizing the benefit of actually collaborating. And you see that with the Ornamental Round Table, the Landscape Institute, the HTA, Barley, the RHS, the Arboricultural Association, and others are getting together and are linking up. They probably need a levy to finance some lobbyists or some marketeers or something to actually get the message right across.
Yeah. Okay, but you're firmly behind Lewis. You think it's a good thing?
Yeah, you know, if we don't get a minister, we want a Mandarin that that, you know, a civil servant that understands the industry and you know, pushes its size. We've got a great plant health officer, Nicola Spence. You know, she's doing good things, and there's some, you know, realization, especially on the biosecurity front, but that's only one element.
I remember talking to some people in the construction industry, and they said something. They had 7 ministers within the space of about 18 months, and they spent most of their time getting the minister up to speed, and then being told, by the way, we're now moving on to a different department. So I guess that's another.
Well, yeah, we've had multiple ministers of environment. In fact, Gove was probably one of the more intelligent ones and probably a bit better. Don't talk to, you know, he mucked up education for our sector because he took away the vocational qualifications.
Yeah.
Or the recognition of the vocational qualifications in the point scoring for education in schools.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on. Let's have your views on Brexit and the effects. I know there's a passion for you here on smaller nurseries as well, and what's happening to them, and the difference between a larger nursery that can cope with it.
Well, yes, the larger nurseries have had to adapt with Brexit. We don't grow enough plants in this country, but with our own nurseries, to satisfy the demand. And you know, you can't grow everything of all the sizes all the time. Growing trees, for example, is quite a, you know, capital intensive process. It's a long time consuming process of 7 to 10 years. So we need to go to the growers in Europe and pick up some of their stock, because they're growing for a much wider market. So they've been able to cope because they're used to admin and things, and they didn't have a lot of time to get fully prepared. But because of Boris's sort of negotiated deal, it was a bit easier than it could have been. DEFRA, I think, have increased their number of inspectors by about 160 or a couple of hundred, but they're way behind the preparations that the Dutch made, for example. They were ready a long time before the UK. And the bigger nurseries will have people that understand admin and bureaucracy and rules and things. So and they're also probably financially more able to bear the charges and the levies and the VAT and stuff that is paid as plants are imported. Hence, we've seen prices of trees going up at 20%, sometimes more, and the availability of those is difficult. But the smaller nurseries that might be involved in mail ordering a few plants to other parts of the country, or, you know, Northern Ireland or into Europe, now find that the costs of phytosanitary certificates and all that, you know, paperwork is too burdensome. Why did they go into horticulture in the first place? Because they didn't want to be an office into the business. No. So they haven't necessarily got those talents, nor the size to be able to employ someone with those sort of talents. And some, sadly, will seeing sectors of their, you know, chunks of their business no longer as viable, and I think that's very tough for them. Yeah. And then
sorry, from a landscaper and a designer's point of view, so an increase in price, less choice on their palette. Where do you see they're going to get affected?
I think they've just got to plan a bit ahead a bit more, give their the nurseries they have a relationship with, foster that, get it working better, give their nurseries time to get things together, or, you know, be more aware of what they've got and use what they've got. You know, there are many plants that will perform the design function that the designer might have chosen. If you go back to sort of design shapes and colours and that sort of thing, you can find other things that will fit the bill, and they may be.
I think it was Mark Stroh from Horticultural said on one of these here that come to the nursery before you do your choice of plants, and then you can do your choice of plants based on what's available.
Absolutely, and don't just come once. Come several times across the year. You get the feel of things. The plants put the final touches to people's designs and schemes and construction. They soften it, they humanize it. And so it's a really important element, even though it's not very a costly element of the process. It's important to get it right.
Yeah, I know you talking about the smaller nurseries and things like that. So have you heard the effects, or have spoken to people that have been affected by this, and is it putting pressure on their business?
Well, I haven't, but I know one in France, Crug Farm Plants up in North Wales, who the Bledwin Joneses, they export, they grow and they go plant hunting. They grow a really wild and wacky range of plants that are of interest to people, across Europe, and they would sell in mail order stuff all over. And they have been, lost probably a third of their business.
Tough.
And that's tough. Yeah.
Do you think one of the long-term effects will be that we will grow more of our own plants in the UK?
I would like to think so. Our biggest problem is the logistics. At Palmstead, if we wanted to buy, we didn't have a certain plant, it would sometimes be easier to buy it from the Dutch because they were quicker at getting it to us than any UK nursery. Often it was more economic as well, but it was just from a manpower time. It was easier to go into Holland. Or you'd send one of your lorries 20 miles off its route to pick up half a dozen plants, which was uneconomic. So we need a good logistics network in the UK. There's a reasonable one for garden centres who have a fairly concentrated season and workload that appeals to the hauliers. But the bits and bobs workload that you get with garden design and construction doesn't seem at the moment to appeal to them. And also the format in that plants are moved around on. If it's on Danish trolleys, then they're returnable and they're expensive, or they're on palletized systems, which are great, but they won't take big objects like trees or big specimen plants. You can't send on the pallet line anything over 2 meters in height. And plants stacked up in a pallet don't always look very nice when they get a bit squashed when they get to the customer.
So Nick, keep trying to move on, because as I say, there's quite a lot that I want to get through with you as well. And I'm going to move on to the buzzword that seems everywhere at the moment, rewilding. And in terms of, I guess, the domestic market and the commercial market, and an understanding of what it really means. And I think there's two things here in terms of, the landscapers designers really understand what rewilding means, and are they likely in a domestic scene to pitch it to their clients, or do you think it's going to be more driven by the commercial sector?
Yeah, I think domestic level, unless you have a sort of garden of hectares and hectares, it's not going to, rewilding, allowing nature to take over a chunk of your domestic garden. You might have a little corner where it's a bit messy, but you won't have a big sector. I think we see it on the commercial and in the large landowning areas. And I mean, the excellent example is the Knepp estate in Sussex, where a few thousand acres have been rewilded, and they've just taken the foot off the any interference with the land, and allowed it to regenerate on its own. And then they've introduced grazing animals in a level that would perhaps mimic what would have happened in nature back in the Neolithic days.
What do you think is driving this, and what do you know, is it?
Okay, Jim, I'll ask you a question. Which bits of the UK would you think as being wild, naturally wild?
The Lake District.
Yeah, the Highlands of Scotland.
Wales.
Yeah.
North Wales.
Yeah. Well, actually, they're all man-controlled landscapes. They're all man-influenced. They're often a form of agriculture, heavily grazed, or the heather moorlands are burnt off to maintain, the conditions right for grouse farming and grouse shooting. And in the Highlands, the red deer are just are kept on those big Highland estates for shooting, but they eat all the regeneration of trees and shrubs. They knock them down, and it's been shown if you can fence the herbivores off from certain patches and just leave them be, they will regenerate, and they will regenerate into scrubby woodland, and that will sequester more carbon than the landscape that they've got, and it will increase the wildlife because it'll increase the niches and the habitat. And it probably also then attenuate more rainfall. So in those upper catchment areas of rivers, it'll slow down the rainfall and the runoff. So we'll get less flooding downstream. And if they say that most hill farmers in sheep farming in the UK and in Wales are living on the subsidy that they've been getting. Now the old subsidies under the European agricultural policy are going to be changing to this environmental land management over the next few years. And that's an opportunity to say, well, let these uplands go back to nature, be left alone. Now, rewilding is not like HS2 saying, when they got all this spoil from the tunnel they've dug under the Chilterns, they're going to dump somewhere and call it rewilded. That's rubbish. That's just a buzzword. Yeah,
and that's the worry, isn't it? Because it does soon become a buzzword.
We don't have any truly natural wild landscape in the UK. Maybe one or two of the islands out of Scotland, but it's all man influenced, man controlled for the last 10,000 years.
So do you think HS2 is wrong for doing what they're doing then, or do you think they're wrong for calling it rewilding?
They're wrong for calling it rewilding. They're going to try and use all this spoil and this chalk or whatever it is, and to create a landscape out of that they're going to allow to colonize naturally, perhaps. But it's not rewilding. It's allowed to self-generate.
Yeah, but better than maybe what they could have been doing with.
Yes, maybe.
If you agree that HS2 is a necessary need as well.
I don't know. I won't comment. It's too complicated. We need to get out of, transport produces far too much carbon. It's the biggest contributor of carbon into our atmosphere in the UK. The answer is to have good public transport or low carbon transport issues and processes. Maybe HS2 is one, but it's an awful lot of money.
Yeah, okay. Let's leave that. Let's get on to another topic that I'm sure you've got some things to say to us on, the skill gap. And also, I think when we look at the skill gap, I think we tend to look at the landscaping section and the people struggling. But if you look at the nurseries, with the age of people retiring, how we're getting and how we're training new people in there, you look at local authorities, and when, I don't know, when was it 1987 that Ishore 88, when a lot of it started getting tendered out, and there was a mass loss of people. You know, so the knowledge in local authorities, the knowledge in nurseries, is there a big skill shortage there?
Yes, I think it's coming. I mean, yes, you're right. In the
Late 80s,
87 or whatever it was, the tendering out of local authority work meant that the training, which had been skill orientated, became just orientated around the mandatory requirements, so chainsaws, pesticides, that sort of thing. So it de-skilled the industry there, and it's never recovered. Hence, we've got, you know, this grounds maintenance is now sort of all about what I call mow and blow.
Yeah.
Everything trimmed to within an inch of its life. And yes, with the age group of people in nurseries, the parents, the children of the owners have seen how hard mum and dad have had to work, and like all parents, we want better for our children, and they've probably had a better chance of better education, and they've all gone off and done other things. So you haven't got a succession coming through. And our industry, the sector, doesn't have a great appeal as a career path. Now, that is partly because it's not seen as skilled, and that's wrong, because there are, you know, the businesses in Horticulture UK or Landscape UK require people of all sorts of different types of skill. And the colleges aren't really satisfying that. There's no career guidance really in schools of any great sense, and the industry itself is a bit slow to it's not coordinated to put over the career path opportunities that there are in the UK in our industry. Now, I'm a trustee of the Barley Chalk Fund, and which is only a small charity, but we are trying to do some things to with the students of landscape in colleges to enrich their education and actually make them more employable ready. So the charity's been funding 2 and now 3 colleges, giving those students the tickets that they'll need to be employable, like the Rolo cards, pesticide tickets, chainsaws, grinding wheel, digger, dumper, driver tickets and things. And we've been quite successful over the last couple of years in doing that. But getting the engagement from colleges, look, here's some free money to give some extra training and education to your students to make them more employable. The phone has been silent. Their engagement, you know, their wish to pick up on that opportunity is really disappointing.
In I think 3rd week in April, we've got 4 representatives from the colleges across the UK coming on to a programme like this to have a debate. So that's quite an interesting topic there. Just on, so why is that then? Why do you think that they aren't engaging in it? Why wouldn't they want to pick up the phone? Why wouldn't they do it?
I think there's quite a changeover of personnel in those places. There are a few centres of excellence. So Capel Manor is one, and the Chalk Fund has been helping them there. And there are a couple of others. Bridgewater is another one. But these colleges, they follow where the money is. They follow, you know, the government money, and they've all gone into animal welfare, pets, equestrian, veterinary things. Some have now got mini zoos, you know, yeah, because that seems to be more appealing. Our sector doesn't, you know, look very attractive. We don't pay really very much at the beginning. and it's sometimes it can be muddy, dirty, and it's outside, and it can be cold and wet, and people don't see the fact that actually the sun shines a lot of the time, and it's actually very good to be outside in the open air, in the green space. And there are lots of positive things in there, and I wish we could sort of sell it better.
And why can't we? And who should be selling it better? Because as you say, there are some positives. And also, if you think of some of the personalities and the presence and the people want to listen to certain people, why can't we get those people in front of them?
Well, I mean, okay, look at no, we sometimes think that television should be doing this for us, but the television is just about entertainment. Now look at the look at Gardener's World. Monty Don hasn't got a great following from the horticultural sector, because he sort of ploughs his own furrow. And this most recent program, Your Garden Made Perfect, I've seen a couple of them. I was disappointed to see certain large trees cut down and artificial grass put up. I don't like artificial grass. It's not good for wildlife. It's not, it has limited certain places where it would be very good, but in domestic gardens, not really. And the most recent one, which was a really good design by Helen L. Smith, up in I think the northwest, and a nice design created, but there was no mention of, and there was some sort of semi-realistic costs about budgets, but there was no real mention of the people that actually put that together. There was no screen time of the contractors doing any of the work. It was always the client and the designer talking. And the stories that the contractors make, it can be fun, and we've seen it in some of the Titchmarsh programs, Love Your Garden and that sort of thing. But a lot of them are, looking at sort of cheap gardens. There are people spending £500,000 on gardens, and that's if they've got a program about people going into smart hotels and looking at the high life of people, well, what's wrong with having programs that are looking at the high life of gardens and landscape construction?
Yeah. I think on that, it's very difficult, and I do feel bad for the landscapers not, being included and being acknowledged on there. But I guess if you talk to the producers and people on there, the landscapers are being paid to do that job. It's a paid-for job. The designers aren't being paid by the client to do that job.
The designers are getting paid,
but I don't think they are in this particular one by the client. I think that's covering the landscaping in the building. I might be wrong on that, but my understanding is that's there. And the fact that it's the BBC, there are lots of rules and regulations. And I also think that programme is a damn sight better than 99.9% of the other ones there that says, oh, give me £2,500 and you can have it in 24 hours and doesn't it look fantastic? I think, that's completely unrealistic. So I think it was definitely a move in the right direction, and we are moving there. And it's, I felt, I guess somebody for Helen and Tom, Manoj and Pip to be involved in it, they must have had they do have a bit of credibility because who they are. But it is still that issue, isn't it? It's trying to make it even wider and even better.
Yes, I think we need that window to show what the sector can do for people, and it would be nice if there could be more programs that take that up another level again.
Yeah. I'm conscious of time, and there's a couple of things that I want to ask as well. So, talking to Nick Coslett 30 years ago, had you still got in the industry?
Yes, I was. I got the sort of the plant and garden bug from my mum, I think. And at school, I said, and I wasn't sure what I had to do, but I found landscape architecture in a careers book, and the careers master didn't have a clue what it was. So I sort of went off on that tract, but I wasn't a designer as such.
Yeah.
So I moved into parks work, and then when a door closed in that, I moved into the nursery sector. So no, I've had a fulfilling and enjoyable career. Thank you very much.
And if there was another,
I wouldn't necessarily do it any other way.
I was going to, and if there was an element now looking back, and you'd have thought, right, I wish I'd started on that path. Which other path in the landscaping sector or the design sector would you have gone down?
I don't know. I sort of just bumbled into it, really.
Would you have preferred to be a designer, or?
I'm not artistic enough, not creative enough on that. So it was probably the right move that I got sort of shifted off that. But it's really helped me, because it gives me an understanding from the design perspective through the maintenance perspective, and the some of the construction and the plant manufacture side of things. So I've got a window on a lot, many different parts of the industry, and I think that's helped me in my roles with the nurseries I've worked for, without a doubt.
And your plans going forward then, because you've got all this wealth of experience, you have helped and mentored a lot of people in the sector. What's your plans?
Well, I enjoy writing your article, and if you still want me to write it,
yeah, perfect. Gets scores very highly. That
I'm happy to carry on doing that. I usually just come up with the idea what I'm going to write about a few days before the deadline.
That's what I mean.
I'm really pleased to be involved in the Barley Chalk Fund, and also a bit of a Barley Awards judge, and that's gives me exposure to the industry I love. I'm volunteering at local National Trust property, which is Sissinghurst, and I'm enjoying that. And yes, we're hoping to have some holidays when we can go travelling and expand the mind. But there'll be some UK trips, I think, hopefully later this year.
And then the final question I've got, so if we were doing this a year down the line, what one major thing would you like to have seen changed? If you could change one thing for the benefit of the industry? I
think better recognition of the benefits the industry bring in government's eyes. If they wanted to increase UK nursery production and offset imports, all they needed to do possibly was to adjust the capital allowances for the nursery businesses. Not necessarily put money up front, but just allow them to offset the capital expense in a shorter period of time rather than the 20 years that it's required. I think it would unleash a lot of stored up capital with the owners of companies, and people would invest because there'd be a quicker payback. Excellent. Good. Well, thank you very much, Nick. It's really good to see you fit and healthy. Look after yourself, and thank you very much for your contribution. Thanks everyone for listening, and hopefully we'll see you all again next Tuesday at 10 o'clock for the mental health debate. Again, thank you very much, Nick. Cheers. Okay, bye. Bye-bye.